On the Buzz Meter this Sunday, Donald Trump says he's the target of a media witch hunt, rips the New York Times for its report on how he treats women, and tries to shift the spotlight to Bill Clinton's past.
I looked at the New York Times. Are they going to interview Juanita Broderick? Are they going to interview Paula Jones? Are they going to interview Kathleen Willey? In one case, it's about exposure. In another case, it's about groping and fondling and touching against a woman's will.
And rape.
And rape.
And big settlements, massive settlements.
$850,000 for Paula Jones.
And lots of other things. And impeachment for lying. Now, the New York Times, and if you look at Stephanopoulos, these are like the pipe organs for Hillary Clinton.
Is the press taking this campaign into the gutter? And is that crash of that Egypt Air flight changing the media's campaign coverage? Megyn Kelly finally sits down with Trump after months of being attacked, with the billionaire saying he has some regrets about his language and certain Twitter tirades.
You would be amazed at the ones that don't retweet.
Bimbo?
Well, there was a retweet, yeah. Did I say that?
Many times.
Ooh, okay. Excuse me.
We'll look at the high-stakes interview and what the critics say. Also, Bob Woodward on why the Washington Post suddenly has 20 reporters investigating Trump. What about Hillary? Mark Zuckerberg sits down with Tucker Carlson and other conservatives to defuse accusations of liberal bias at Facebook. But was this just for show? Tucker will be here. Plus, remembering Morley Safer, a giant and a gentleman. I'm Howard Kurtz, and this is Media Buzz. The crash of that Egypt airplane dominated the news for days, with Donald Trump drawing some criticism from the press for quickly tweeting that it looks like terrorism. And he really got into it on MSNBC with Mika Brzezinski.
I think the worry also is just how you will be as president and present your positions and your words. And there are some concerns that you might be trigger happy with your words. Like, for example.
Oh, really? I'm the one that didn't want to go into Iraq, Mika. If I'm thinking of the future, we cannot continue to let things like this happen.
Joining us now to analyze the campaign coverage, Betsy Woodruff, political reporter for the Daily Beast. Kelly Riddell, deputy opinion editor for the Washington Times, and Joe Trippi, the Democratic strategist and Fox News contributor. Betsy, Mika really castigated Trump over that tweet. Candidates are usually a bit more cautious. He said what most people, I think, were thinking. Was that criticism fair?
I think it's totally understandable. I mean, the reality is no authorities, no one from Egypt, no one from the United States government had said that this was a terrorist attack. Donald Trump, from the campaign trail, obviously for political reasons, shouldn't have been the one to break that news. Now, of course, it's
break
understandable.
That news, he was offering his opinion.
Right, exactly. But I mean, to say that that's the case, right, to put it out there like that's a statement of fact.
Looks like terrorism.
But we know what he means there. I just think it's totally understandable that folks would say maybe he should keep his powder dry on that one.
But when Mika Brzezinski goes from that to basically saying Trump is a warmonger, trigger happy. Do the media have an obligation to point out that he opposed the Iraq war fairly early, no evidence before the war, and is less of a hawk than Hillary Clinton?
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of times when these decisions were made, he was a private citizen. He wasn't getting these intel reports, so he can. Well,
that doesn't let him off the hook completely.
It doesn't let him off the hook completely. But listen, with this tweet, what he did is he took a direct stab at Hillary Clinton and the Benghazi cover-up, and he basically went out and he said, "This is an act of terror. The American people are sick of covering this stuff up. We're going to call a spade a spade. I'm not a traditional politician. I'm breaking the establishment. I'm not reading off of scripted talking points. I'm just going to tell you how it is." And I think that's who Donald Trump is, and that's how he's running his campaign.
Talk about, I see you shaking your head, Joe. Talk about winning the news cycle, and you can come back to your point. So Hillary Clinton, hours later, is on CNN with Chris Cuomo, and she says it does appear to be an act of terrorism, which is what Trump's tweet said. But then she ends up getting questioned about Trump's tweet because he was out of the gate faster.
Well, no, that's what Trump did. What Trump does is he either creates the news cycle or he jumps into one, no matter what it is. So a plane goes down, bam, he's right there and he's in real time and he's tweeting, and that's how he's gotten to where he is.
Do you say this admiringly as a former campaign manager, or would it keep you up at night?
No, as a campaign manager, that's scary because you don't know when your candidate's going to blow himself up, and it's totally possible. I mean, everybody keeps saying Trump never will, but I think that's one of the problems that a lot of the other candidates out there can't, and the Republicans
probably
can't
not the best phrase in this context, but I know you didn't intend it that way. All right, let me turn to the continuing fallout over this New York Times piece last weekend. 2 full pages about Donald Trump's relationships with and conduct toward women. The lead anecdote involved a woman named Roanne Lane Brewer, who pushed back hard when she was portrayed as having a negative interaction with Donald Trump. Here she is on Fox and Friends, followed by the Times reporters defending their piece.
They told me several times, and my manager several times, that it would not be a hit piece and that my story would come across the way that I was telling it, and honestly, and it absolutely was not.
I believe Roanne has asked for an apology. I mean, what do you say?
I think we really stand by our story. We believe we quoted her fairly and accurately, and that the story really speaks for itself.
Is it damaging to the New York Times that the woman in this lead anecdote, who, by the way, went on to be Trump's girlfriend for several months, came out and basically said they got it all wrong?
It's obviously not helpful. That said, of course, she didn't dispute the words that they quoted her as saying. She didn't dispute that the anecdote happened. The only thing she said was that this was a positive interaction rather than a negative one. And the reality is New York Times readers can decide for themselves whether Trump's behavior that night was okay. There's a difference between behavior that's welcome and behavior that we necessarily find appealing from someone who years later will want to have the nuclear codes.
What this was about, Kelly, is she first met Donald Trump at a pool party at Mar-a-Lago. He said, "Do you want to change into a swimsuit?" She did, and then he introduced her as a beautiful Trump girl or something. The Times said this was a debasing experience. She said she was proud. So is that putting your finger on the journalistic scale?
I think this is a classic case of these reporters having an agenda and having a preconceived narrative that they wanted to be proven true. And so they went through all the sources and they put together a story that that was preconceived, that basically touted the narrative of Donald Trump as kind of a creepy guy, when this clearly has been proven baseless by Roanne, as well as by Carrie Prejean, what Miss USA, who said that they didn't even bother to interview her. They just went through her book and took excerpts and kind of placed them in the story where they felt necessary. So it's not representative, and it clearly was a hit piece.
Joe.
Look, I think it clearly showed bias. I mean, even coming from my corner, like there was no reason to do the whole lead of this thing with somebody that they say was debased, and she says
she was happy.
I'm happy.
And she went on.
So I mean, I think that does damage. I mean, whether it was biased or not, it damages the credibility of the story, and they shouldn't have put it that way.
What do you make with Trump pushing back hard against the New York Times, which is fine, lame, hit piece, and all that? But in the context of that interview with Sean Hannity that we showed at the top, he brings up Bill Clinton and an allegation by Juanita Broaddrick dating to 1978, was not made public for until 20 years. She says he raped her. That's never been proven. What do you make of Trump going there and the way the media should treat that?
Well, I mean, Trump's going to go there. There's nowhere he won't go. So the Clintons have to, prepare for that. It's going to be, and the press has to cover it when he says stuff like that.
If I can add, Hillary Clinton, in an interview during her campaign, said that women who make allegations that they're sexually abused or attacked deserve to be believed. She opened the door for Trump to bring this back, for reporters to bring this back, for the entire history of Bill Clinton's sexual shenanigans to be fair game.
The press loves this stuff, but it is about her husband.
Yeah, readers love this stuff too.
But Andrea Mitchell on NBC basically said that Juanita Broaddrick's case has been disproven. Now that is not accurate. It has never been disproven, and NBC's report still stands to this day. So the media partially is responsible. They need to actually report the truth on this and not drop off the unsavory things about Bill Clinton. And then you have the bimbo eruptions that Hillary Clinton was a part of in terms of the
when you say that,
90s.
Bimbo eruptions was not her term. It was a term of Bill Clinton's former chief of staff. And I am waiting to see the evidence of Hillary Clinton's personal involvement.
Carl Bernstein's book, his biography of Hillary Clinton, lays it out. You have George Stephanopoulos, who quit the White House because of these reasons, and he puts that out in his book as reason.
He didn't say he quit the White House because of Let me get you.
It's still going to be is like most, if not all of it's been aired over and over and over and over again. I think what's going to be interesting is the more Donald Trump or the press goes on both of them in these areas, I don't think it's still going to be the economy. It's still going to be other things. And I think the press does get preoccupied with trying
have to
follow
plead guilty to this. There was a fascination with Trump and women, and Bill Clinton and women, and Hillary's role in her husband's philandering. All right, let me move on because there was obviously a huge media buildup for the Fox Broadcast Network primetime special, the first one with Megyn Kelly. One of the guests was, of course, Donald Trump. Let's take a look at when they talked about whether the candidate had second thoughts about anything he's done in this campaign.
So when you look back on the past 9 months from that first debate to now, any regrets?
Absolutely, I have regrets. I don't think I want to discuss what the regrets are, but absolutely, I could have done certain things differently. I could have maybe used different language in a couple of instances. But overall, I have to be very happy with the outcome.
Was the interview revealing?
Not particularly. I mean, for him to say I could have used different language at some point is perhaps the vaguest possible thing you could say.
Well, Trump's not big on apologies, and he said he had regrets.
But it's weird that he said he had regrets, but then didn't point out anything specific. It's also weird that Megyn Kelly didn't go after him and ask him, what exactly are you talking about? He said so many things that have drawn pointed, brutal criticism. For him just to say, oh, every once in a while, maybe I said something unfortunate, and for there not to be follow-up or more detail, I think a lot of folks are disappointed.
Well, an interesting phrase that Megyn Kelly didn't go after him because she made clear that this was not a presidential debate. It was not an interview on the Kelly file about issues. It had been taped well in advance, and that it was going to be somewhat of a softer personality profile, but obviously they talked about themselves. So what do you think is the impact of Trump saying, gee, maybe I shouldn't have retweeted Bimbo and that sort of thing? Any?
No, I don't think it's got much impact. But look, I think the expectations for this thing were all off. I mean, Megyn Kelly's proven she can take on Donald Trump and really ask him the tough questions. That's how the whole thing started. Yeah. So I think again, this was a different time, a different kind of interview, and I don't think there was a lot of gotcha trying to trip him up.
Well, Kelly, a lot of critics didn't like it, and that's fine. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, whether it was too soft or not. But some of them I felt may have had an agenda. I'd like to get your thoughts. Slate's Isaac Chotiner panned the interview. He has called Donald Trump a bigoted quasi-fascist and fraud, a dangerously unstable demagogue. Washington Post Hank Stuver has called Trump hateful, nonsensical, vainglorious. So they didn't like the interview.
I mean, this is ironic, right? I mean, they all rallied toward Megyn Kelly's cause after the August debate, and they looked at her as some sort of champion. She's always been neutral. She says she doesn't love Donald Trump, she doesn't hate Donald Trump, and this was going to be a fair interview, and that's what it was. And just because she didn't attack him, they are disappointed with it, and that's just ridiculous.
All right.
It was pre-taped 2 weeks in advance, though, and so it's hard to do breaking news at the Kelly. She's looking at this to warm him up to get on the Kelly file, so that she can go after the hard-hitting stuff. This was more of a Barbara Walters type of interview.
Quick. She had the entire year, though, of his campaign statements to work with, and we didn't get any new information as far as how he saw the lead-up. That's not a breaking news.
You should interview Megyn Kelly then. It shouldn't be an interview with Donald Trump, right?
As I said, the critics disagree even at this table. When we come back, Brit Hume on the Never Trump crowd and whether the press should still take those folks seriously, and later. Inside the meeting between Mark Zuckerberg and the conservatives who say Facebook is biased.